upcycling, recycling, sustainable fashion, ethical fashion, circular fashion. All the buzzwords that we've been hearing of late. But what about the whole concept of ethical fashion in Africa? Today's video, I'll be bringing in an amazing guest who's producing fashion in West Africa, but based in a different country, also in West Africa, and doing an ethical fashion business and creating a brand that promotes change, supports communities along the value chain. Let's dive into the video, and do make sure to subscribe to my channel. Welcome. Jennifer, it's so good to have you here with me this week for our Fashion Africa Voices interviews. Please introduce yourself and your company. Tell us a bit about yourself, what you do.
Right. Hello, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for inviting me to this your YouTube channel. And I'd like to first of all say that you've been doing an amazing job for the continent, and we in the continent are very grateful for the awareness and pulling us all together. Right. So my name is Jennifer Ronne. I live in Togo, West Africa. My brand is called Victoria Grace Fashion. I'm originally from Nigeria, but British born and brought up. So I actually come from Britain like you, Jacqueline. I'm married to a German, so there's a great mix going on there. So I have a lot of Africa and a lot of Europe in me. And my brand has been created with that in mind, with the diversity, the inclusive, just being part of two different continents, and the issues and the pluses and the minuses of the continent. What's the great things about the African continent, and what is great about the European continent, and I inject all that into the brand. So living in West Africa, particularly living in Togo, I have found out that I'm very close to landfill. I also find out that our markets are filled, lines and lines of markets, with excess fabrics as well. So there's a lot of dumping in Africa. Instead of the manufacturing industry being revived, what we are here is that we are where what is excess, what's no longer needed, is brought here. So it's the consumer's excess or the unwanted from the consumer, which is their secondhand or worn out clothing and shoes and items, are dumped here. And the producer's excess of fibers, fabrics, and anything that is damaged or they can no longer sell or use is also dumped here. So as a fashion designer, with this place as my ecosystem, I feel I have a responsibility to turn what I find around into, once again, loved and usable, appreciated items. And so my brand has become a lot more that, and whatever word that, wherever that belongs to, or the definition of that, it's a mix of everything.
So, I mean, that's a really deep story. You kind of fallen into that because of the situation you saw around you, which is a great thing, because it shows that you've reacted to a problem, trying to create a solution using fashion as like the medium. Was fashion your background? Did you have any experience doing things in the fashion industry prior to starting this business? I mean, how did you set everything up?
Well, that's a good question. Well, my career has spanned across different industries, and actually I started in fashion with Condé Nast UK, British Vogue. I worked there, and then I moved on to, before I worked in British Vogue, I was actually a PR consultant, an independent PR consultant, and I was headhunted into Vogue because I was probably doing so well then. I also worked in merchandising. So I was part of the team that set up the first Calvin Klein merchandise store on Bond Street. I'm not sure it's still there, but that was also. So I had merchandising.
There's been a lot of changes
since the lockdown, but that's just even before lockdown. I'm not sure whether it survived, but Calvin Klein came in, and it was just purely merchandising. So I was the first team there. Worked for British Vogue, So that's publishing, PR, and merchandising. But, you know, I also had my first degree was in marketing, so I thought that was useful. But then I did a master's in financial derivatives. So slowly, I sort of moved my way into hedge funds and investment banking, which is where I was till I left the UK totally. But you know, I wore the clothes and then I went to work. You know, so I think I was an early influencer. You know, I think I took on that influencer, but it didn't have a name then. So I was an influencer in the banking industry, wearing the labels. I remember Stella McCartney was one of my favorites because of her approach to. Her approach was just, and I had a whole load of her items then. Then I found myself moving out of the UK to Africa, and in Africa, I sort of eventually ended up becoming the Director General for the Nigerian German Business Association, which is an association that brings Nigerian companies together with German companies, and you know, we do delegation trips to both countries, and also making Nigeria attractive. And that meant putting up conferences and events to showcase the potential in the country. And it came to our awareness that the country wanted to diversify the overdependence on oil into other areas. And one of those areas was the textile manufacturing and textile industry. So I just went for it. In Nigeria, I went for it and I put an event together with Africa Fashion Week, London. They were doing something, and we put a conference together. I think it was one of the first, and it got a huge interest because they hadn't done a conference at that time. And we brought in the Bank of Industry, and we brought the ministers in, and everybody was able to sit down and actually hear, yes, the Nigerian government is very much keen on the textile industry and turning it around. So we were the first to put that conference together. And that made me sort of yearn for fashion again. And I sort of said, oh my gosh, I wish I could go back into the fashion industry. And the owner of the brand said, well, look, you know, we have a slot at Africa Fashion Week London. And if you feel that you can put a collection together, well, go ahead, because we're really grateful for what you've done. Why don't you go ahead and try it? And I said, do you really think I could do that? And she said, yes, look, go ahead. So I ran home, I got things together, and I had a short time, and I put a collection of, I think, about 15 pieces together, got to London, and it was on the runway in Olympia, Africa Fashion Week London, Olympia. And at the end of the runway, and in my stand, a lady came up to me and said to me, I'd like to have that, and that, and that. I'm like, you would? Okay. So she said, yes, just chose a few pieces. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, can you get this across to us in Philadelphia? And I'm like, okay, who are you? Well, I am the buyer for Anthropology, and we would like to have 5 of your pieces. I'm like, what? Who are you? I don't know. And she said, do you think I have to stay here any longer? Because I've seen what I want. And I'm saying, well, if you ask me, I'll tell you can go on, you know? And that was it. I got the endorsement that any designer would have needed to say to them that you are doing something right. And I got it from Anthropology. Obviously, there's a longer story to that. And I don't want to shame the logistics company that lost the items in transit and it never arrived, you know. So that's another story altogether. But I had the endorsement that said, this is what you did was good, and you can go ahead. And so that birthed my fashion, and from that moment on, I became a fashion designer.
Wow. I'm loving this. I'm loving this story. I'm loving how you've transitioned as well, your business, and just moving locations, and even with that, moving to Togo specifically. I mean, you were in Nigeria and doing things there, and then in Togo. What kind of challenges have you found now doing the fashion business, based where you are, producing in Africa? Could you share some of that?
Yes, definitely. It came with it. Goes without saying, the skill set. Um, I say in West Africa or in the African countries that I have been, are not up to the standard that you would want for an international export or import, or it doesn't match the standards because, like I said, the industry was defunct pretty much. It needs a revival. It needs to be revived. And so we're coming in at a good time. But as a designer, my first instinct was, okay, I'll just go out and get those artisans that I see with the butterfly machines. I'll show them what I want and we'll work together and we'll get some things done. And that's what I did when I came to Togo. And I put, I got the fabrics, I put the idea, I was really full of energy, and I found my artisan tailors and I got there. But if they made more than 2 pieces or 3 pieces, and you found out that it wasn't the same, the sizes weren't correct, or the one sleeve was longer. In fact, the other day, one of my last artisan made pieces, from one of the tailors, somebody said they wanted it, and I thought, oh, okay, it's discounted, you can have it. And then she put it on and one sleeve was bigger than the other, and it just reminded me, and talking about waste, that's waste. If they don't take it, it's waste. And so the skill is so, they can only just make one dress at a time. The slow fashion, the couture, yes, but not for a designer. For an individual, it's customer to tailor. That they can do. But if it's somebody like a designer who wants to produce for her collection, it's quite challenging. And that's a big challenge because I've had to incur a lot of loss and a lot of waste as a result of that. But we find ways around it. And at the moment, I'm working. I spent about 2 years looking for the right factory. Obviously, that's how I came across you, because that's the problem that we all have. We have to go looking for the factory, and it's so hard. And I was lucky. I found a factory in Nigeria that was going to do the right quantities for me and had the right skill set, and it was fully air conditioned in a very prime location, very thorough. In fact, she was far more thorough. And in fact, it was tedious. It was a tedious relationship because her standards were very high. Yes, so I made my very first ever well-made clothes in Africa. And I've been at it for a while, but I've only just made my first. And so that's quite challenging for any business to have to go through that.
So I saw a video on your Instagram recently where you were carrying baskets with the off-cuttings and you was taking that to, I believe it was like a deaf institute or something like that in Togo, where you're based. Maybe you could share a bit about that, because you're talking about the waste and how that links to your business with your offcuts. If you remember the video that you posted, share a bit about what that was about and why you do that.
Right, so obviously, there's so many tiers to the business. Obviously, now I have found my manufacturers and I'm very pleased with them, and it's in Nigeria, so I go back and forth. And then obviously I did say, I'm not sure whether I mentioned, we are very close to landfill. Landfill incinerators, they're just around the corner from us, and the huge secondhand market. And just right behind me is the sea, and the shiploads and containers come on, I think, Mondays and Thursdays, container loads every week, twice a week, of secondhand and on used items, right? Unwanted items. So I've got that bit, and then there's also I still want to work with the artisans, and I found a way to work my zero waste with a group of artisans that I recently met who are ladies hard of hearing, deaf ladies, and they have learned the skill of tailoring. They've gone through the 3-year training, which is the process that happens here in Togo. You an apprenticeship. You stay with one tailor for 3 years and learn the skill before you set up on yourself. So they've done all that. They've invested their 3 years into the business, and then they were ready to set up their own business, and they found that the error or the problem was worse for them, because the customer, even though they now have the customer tailor relationship, the customer doesn't understand them and they don't understand the customer. So the communication, so the dress ends up, or the item ends up wrong, and the customer might not have enough patience for these deaf ladies are out of business. The customer doesn't come back, so they're just out of business. So they've done the 3 years apprenticeship, but they don't really have good custom. And so somebody found them, and she put them together and put them on a salary, because some of them have children, and then brought them in house. And now they can make specifics like these nice little headgear things. This is made by them from my zero waste. So I give them my waste, and they make shoelaces. They're making headbands. They're making scarves, beautiful scarves. They're just doing so many beautiful things with my waste. So I take my waste, I go there, so they stay employed. So it's my duty as a designer to keep them in business, doing something that they can do, that they can do well. So you don't need the communication problem is no longer there with the customer and them, because they already know I'm making a scarf, and they're producing many scarves, producing so many shoelaces for me, that all the waste that I bring in, they make little lovely things and scrunchies, and they use up my waste, and they feel valued, and they go home, so at the moment, I'm trying to encourage other designers as well, or people out there, if you want your scarves or anything, I have the waste, we can give it to them, because there are 10 other deaf ladies sitting at home hoping to be employed into this whole system, because she can't employ all of them. But as long as you have designers who can take the waste off them, the scarves and this thing off them, then they can come to work. And so I'm happy to use them, and it's great. So if I make a dress like this and I get some waste, the waste ends up, we get scarves out of it, we get scrunchies out of it, everything that I have now, we find ideas of things. They make winter scarves, they make berets, they also weave, so you have your own bespoke weave, everything is there. And they use they upcycle, so they use the upcycle blankets that we find, they upcycle it, and they integrate it into the weave to make woolly scarves for winter, and they're very good. And so I'm using them. So.
Well, look, I think I mentioned to you, or those who are watching right now, so as founder of Africa Fashion Guide, we've been doing the sourcing for brands, retailers, designers, and now launching our sourcing platform called the Fashion Africa Trade Expo, or the FATE. So this is definitely something where we could work with you, have them on the platform as well. And then it will be an extra market for people to come and find them if they're coming through our networks. And then it's, the services going back to them. So that's another platform. We can talk about that after, and you can get it enrolled through yourself, through your company. So let's do that. Let's do that. Okay.
Let's do that. Sounds good.
And then just to ask, so you've got this business that kind of just happened organically, excuse the pun for the word, but kind of happened just out of the blue, a little bit, by chance. You've got validated, got good traction. But how do you now, well, first of all, what products are you making? And then how do you get them to market? Because sales is the nature of this game. No sales, no business. So describe the actual products that makes up Victoria Gray's fashion, and how you get them to market.
Okay, that's a very good question. I said earlier on that I'm a mix of different continents. I'm African heritage, I am British born, married to a German. And so I've been exposed from day one to diversity, and fashion for me is about putting your experiences and your journey and your outlook, your adventure into clothing that could be loved. And so my days in England working in investment banking and previously working in British Vogue allowed me to find a taste that was just suited for London ladies who lunch, or ladies on the go, or ladies who are busy, who have to catch up with friends after work, or have to go to the cinema, go to the opera. We had so much to do. We had to keep our diary busy, the London ladies diary. And we have so many occasions, the calendar is packed, and then you then have to catch a flight, to go, for a weekend trip to another European country, and then get back to work. And then, we're women, we have the challenges in the office, and we have to try and appear as if we are confident and we're comfortable in our skin, no matter what's happening with our body shapes. We still have to appear confident, and we know that our clothing can help. It makes it eases life. It makes you fall into places, dinner parties and social gatherings, and then go to the park. The whole diary, the London Ladies Diary. And that was part of my life, having worked, in the UK and London. And then coming to Nigeria, or to West Africa, you get so close to color and the vibrancy of their wax prints, and the history and the heritage that goes with it, and the woven looms that they use, and the silhouettes that they actually take into consideration, because they embrace the very curvy woman beautifully, and the cultural activities and festivities that come with it. And that has been incorporated. So in one design of mine, just one design, you're going to see the classic English or European cut. And then you're going to also have a feel or a touch or an excess or a little bit of this Africa. So you just have to walk into an experience, and the total sum of it is that you be ready to do whatever it is you're set to do, regardless of your body shape. My first dress was the old dress that took everybody's body shape into consideration. And that was my first one because of the tailoring issue. So whether you are large hips, small hips, big boot, everyone could fit into that one dress, and it was a heritage dress using the embroidery of the artisan. I've moved on with the factory, and the dresses have finer cuts, finer shapes, a lot more elegance, and a lot more ready for busy mums, busy working women, and busy, but yet at the same time, always looking good and feeling confident. And that's what you're going to get from Victoria Grace. So it's not a difficult sell, because it solves a problem, and also, you don't need too much, because there's one item can be dressed up, dressed down. It depends. You can put the cardigan on, you can take it off. A lot of things can have, it's multi-fact, and it can run across. You can wear one dress to a wedding, at the same time wear it to work, because it's subtle, and it's a conversation piece. And so at the moment, my e-commerce store will be launched on the 1st of March, but I'm showing a bit of our work so far in bits in Instagram. And people who sign up to our newsletter or email list, I will send them more information about it. And we are also going to use the tailors here for bespoke couture. So if you are a plus size, or if you are adaptive clothing, I'm looking for the handicap to help with the handicap, so that we can still use the artisans here. It just requires you coming onto our site, logging in and putting in your measurements, and then we'll have them make it bespoke for you with no extra cost, just so that everyone can be part of the brand.
I'm loving that. I'm loving that you're considering the adaptive clothing as well. As I know that that's a major area that often gets overlooked, is disabled versus able bodies, and the needs of those who may have disabilities, physical disabilities. So that's a really, really great angle, and you're considering it. So your brand being, ethical, sustainable brand, is not just by the ways, the zero waste measures that you're taking. It's not just by the ethical fashion considerations. It's thinking about different bodies, different shapes, different needs. And I think that everything about it is what is creating the strength of your brand and creating the interest that is growing your brand. I like that you said you can just walk into it. You just walk into this experience, as you as you pronounce it. I think that's a really lovely way of saying it.
I add, you know, because I did my first photo shoot with this brand, and I am drawn. I think the strength of being an ethical brand is what you feel more in Africa. I think that's being what that means. And I stumbled across an article that said that in Kenya that albinos were being hunted down because some rural people believed that a part of their body can cure COVID. You know, I know, one of those typical things, right? And as I was going through this article and thinking, this can't be true, you know. Yes, you just Google it. The albinos can be hunted down, you know, and also I'm in Africa. I'm sweating at the moment, you know, and they also have issues with the skin, the sun, and then the sight.
Yeah.
And I thought we need to raise awareness that they are not something different. They are just like any other person. It's not just the plus size or that one. So I found the Association of Albinism in Togo, and I sent them a message saying that I'm about to do a photo shoot. Could you ask any of your girls if they come to my house and cast for a photo shoot, you know? So obviously they don't have models, but then yes.
Gorgeous.
And I did it, and 3 girls came with 3 different looks, and you did the very typical African, really typical African albino face, which is, you know, really round, and then you have the ones with the eyes, and you know, the different ones. And as I saw them in my house, I just couldn't resist. I said, I'll have the 3 of them. I had a plan to do a photo shoot, just taking one per type of person, but my budget wasn't even that high. And I just said, I love the 3 faces. And so with this new collection, I featured albinos there, and oh my gosh, it was the joy of going through the makeover. So I had to be the stylist on this thing to do the makeup. I bought the makeup myself. I asked them to buy their own makeup, and the makeup they bought didn't work, right? So I went into the local market with a makeup artist that I found, and we found the right makeup for them. So I had a whole day looking for their makeup, found their hairstylist. I bought the hair that did, you know, it was as if I had now got 3 babies, you know, and the transformation was such a joy. But the most beautiful thing about it was when we put the Victoria Grace clothes on them and put the camera on, they became supermodels. They were, it was a super, and the world, everybody around who saw them, who was watching, thought they were the most beautiful women that you'd ever seen, you know, and they just want to be models now, and the photos are going to the association to raise awareness. So we do things like that, and ethically, I think we're really ethical, because Africa, that is Africa. This is our, you know, I needed shoes for the photo shoot. You know, I didn't want to buy shoes for the models, and the models don't have good quality shoes. The shoes are a bit broken, so I had to get the shoes. And I went to the secondhand market, and the shoes there were just a disaster. They were worse than the clothes. They were just smelly and torn and bits and pieces. And I picked up a few of those shoes and found a disabled cobbler in the market near the incinerator, and said to him, let's have fun with this. And he looked at my eyes and said, are you really serious? I said, yes, I'm serious. Use raffia. Let's use anything we see on the floor around us, and let's transform these shoes. Here are some of my zero waste as well. Let's make, and he said, really? And, you know, and I said, yes. And he made the most beautiful, upcycled the shoes, and we use it on the shoes. So those are the kind of things that, you know, Africa offers.
You're really disrupting the industry, as the saying is at the moment. You know, you're taking the way traditionally things are done, and you're seeing about new ways of doing things in fashion, and you're bringing in your own ethics and aesthetics into it. And that seems to be what Victoria Grace Fashions is all about, really. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned? As we're wrapping up a little bit, what's some of the lessons you've learned doing business in Africa? If you're going to share with those who are watching, you are thinking, I'm still thinking about it. Should I do it? what's some of the lessons that you've learned? Maybe good, maybe bad, but they're lessons either way. What's some of them that you've learned that you can share?
Okay, well, it's simple for me because I have to add, I'm sorry, I have to say, my favorite jewelry, diamonds and pearls. I'm one of those girls. I love diamonds and pearls. I've always loved it. So I've always had the smallest pearl, no matter how small it was, or the smallest little diamond, no matter how small. And I was always happy with it, and I didn't need any more. And I would say Africa, doing business in Africa is like a diamond and a pearl. You all know the story of a pearl. It's from grit. It's made from grit. It's made from pain, and then it turns into something beautiful. It starts from dust and grit, and it's just a matter of time, and the pearl comes out of the oyster. And a diamond comes from the ground, and it comes from whatever, and it becomes this diamond. But it needs patience and time and deliberation and care, not exploitation, and love, and that's just doing business in Africa. It's the diamond and the pearl of business. It's not there for you. It doesn't come as a finished good. It comes as grit, and it comes with the sand and the mud and everything. But if you stay there and you hang in there, it turns the sunshine, the elements around Africa, the people, the voices, the sounds, and everything, turns everything into a pearl and a diamond, which anyone can appreciate and love. So doing business in Africa can be is rewarding. Is rewarding for yourself.
But is there a lesson that you want to say that maybe you learned not to do something one way, or that it's actually better to do it that way? I mean, is there something you say you've learned specifically for Africa?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. The lesson is, I would say, for any designer starting now or the old designers around, it's best that you align yourself with a consultancy or an agency that has had experience doing business in Africa, so that you can cut all the errors and the loss and the waste and the tailoring and the larger arm and the shorter arm. I experienced so much. I've been at it for a while, and I only got it this year or last year. So you don't.
We're all learning. We're all experiencing and learning. But sorry, go ahead. No, welcome to fashion.
I only just got it this year, and so my advice to anybody: you don't have to go through that whole. You can go straight to the consultancy. I can tell you now what you need to do, where you need to go, and what you don't need to do. I can tell you if you use dead stock. Let me give you an example for an African. If you use dead stock, because you have to use dead stock, it's not a celebratory thing. It's not a hip thing. It's something you have no choice. Otherwise, you have to import your fabrics, which is adding to the CO2 emissions as well. So it's not sustainable anyways. And the dead stock is sitting here, which is polyester, man-made fabrics, but you have no choice as an African designer. You have to use it. But if you're going to use it, make sure that you send a yard, cut 1 yard out of the whole lot and send it off for testing, fabric testing, so that you can know the components of that dead stock, so that your label can be correct, for correct labeling, So don't buy exact amount for the clothes you want, buy an extra yardage and get it tested, and you need a full yard. So you can imagine in my case, I finish my entire collection and then I then send a little swatch over for testing, and it's not big enough for testing. So how do I now put my fabric on? These are things that will happen. So you learn from that. So luckily the numbers were low, the production was low, and so if I had to up the production or do wholesale, that wouldn't pass without the right. Some people lie on their labeling. You can't. You have to do that. So you wouldn't know this, and these are setbacks for you to go onto the international market. AGOA, you would not pass AGOA if you don't have the right. So these are things that just one small thing that you need to know, and don't. I think it's a personal thing, but do not pay people what they ask you to pay. The African artisan or somebody, they always charge less than they are worth. Try, you know, it's a part. They do. They can't live off the money that they charge and the amount of time they use on that one item, you know, but they don't know any better. So if you have been exposed or you've gone anywhere, please don't do that. Let's then go to the marketing and the sales category and learn how to sell it for the right price. But don't cut the artisan, and that, because that's why they don't have the skill anyways, and that's why the industry is in the state it is, because people take advantage of that, and that's a lot. That's happening a lot. So I mean, there's so many things I can say, but another time.
I just love that, because it's one of went through the trainings that I do with the Fashion Africa Business Academy as part of Africa Fashion Guide. One of the trainings I do say is, you know, it's about relationship building. It's about understanding the culture, the landscape of the place that you're working in, knowing what they can and can't do. Don't go in there saying, I want you to create a chantilly lace or to do something, to create knitwear, and they don't have the knitwear expertise in that whole country or in that town. Go in, see what's available, work with what's available, and some things you can develop, or maybe you help to support the skills if you've got that skill yourself, and don't haggle the prices out. Yes, there'll be some people who will try a little something with you, and you know, they'll think, let me just go really high. And there's many will just, as you say, it's a small amount, and you should be able to pay more and support them. So I love that. So I think you kind of answered the one of the last questions I had, which was about the advice. I think that really sums up. Is there any kind of last things that you wanted to say? Maybe something that's coming up. Just remind people of the website, where we can find you. Maybe something you're doing over this year, if we plan anything this year. At the time of this recording, still in lockdown in some countries. So is there anything you've got maybe planned online or anything? Please share.
Oh yes, I am without a doubt a Black-owned business, and what that means is that we really haven't had a fair game globally in the industry. And also, I'm a woman business, and I'm in Africa, and I'm working with the deaf and make things like this, and the artisans, and the, you know, and all these artisans. And the industry is hard, but I can assure you that I make beautiful clothes that can last. And so I am saying that support Black-owned businesses, support people like us. Come to my website, which is opening on the 1st of March. Right? On the 1st of March, my website will be up and running, and have a look, and you will see clothes that you love, clothes that you can wear across, and that we care about you. And also, if you're plus size or whatever body shape you have, we're taking that into consideration as well. So send us an email, tell us about you, what you like and what you don't like. I'm also looking forward to my next collection, and this is the first place I'm announcing it. My next collection is going to be co-designed with you. So I'm going to open up, you know, my label so that you can come in, and we're going to co-design a capsule wardrobe.
That's amazing.
A wardrobe that anyone can wear, but you are responsible, as well as I am, for making sure that we make something that we can love for life, and it won't end up in landfill. So anything I can do to stop clothes ending up in landfill is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do that with you. But in the meantime, go to my website, go to my website that is coming out on the 1st of March, and buy and support us. By buying our clothes, you're supporting us, you're supporting the deaf ladies, you're supporting Maza, the handicapped shoe cobbler, you're supporting the people who make our bags, who are sitting in front of the incinerator every day, and you're supporting a very good factory in Nigeria that has good working conditions in the best locations, so they're well paid, and you're supporting me and keeping me in business. So wear nice clothes and stay beautiful and be kind, and you know, just support our businesses, and we really appreciate our customers that have been supporting us so far.
Love it. Love. So wow, what can I say but thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for sharing the amazing business with all the Africa Fashion Guide community here on YouTube. and to share your awesome, awesome business with us. Totally got my support. Let's definitely talk more. And for those who are watching, do remember every Thursday is a new video on this channel. Do subscribe so you can be notified. And yeah, just continue to build, trade, source, and make in Africa. And let's see change then. See you in the next video.